On May 23rd, the House of Representatives narrowly approved a sweeping 1,000-page package by a 215 to 214 vote. The measure, officially H.R. 1, is known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. Its passage averted what would have been the first federal default in U.S. history. The bill lifts the statutory debt ceiling by $4 trillion. That increase covers existing obligations and the bill's own provisions through mid-2026. Behind the scenes, party leaders worked urgently. Former President Trump personally lobbied wavering Republicans at the White House. Speaker Mike Johnson held late-night strategy sessions. In the end, 2 GOP members voted with Democrats and 1 cast a present vote. That single-vote margin was enough to clear the House. The bill's core aim is to make permanent the Trump-era tax cuts enacted in 2017. Those cuts were set to expire in 2025. Under the new law, they will never sunset. The top individual income tax rate stays at 37%. The corporate rate remains at 21%. The capital gains rate stays at 20%. The estate tax exemption remains at $12.92 million per person. Beyond extending those headline rates, the bill offers additional tax breaks. It abolishes federal taxes on overtime pay and tips. Service industry workers will no longer pay Social Security or Medicare taxes on those earnings. It exempts interest on auto loans for new U.S.-built vehicles through 2028. High earners in high-tax states benefit from a raised SALT cap. Seniors aged 65 and over get an extra boost to their standard deduction. Families with children will also see changes. Proponents say these changes help working families. They argue the measures offset other cuts in the bill. Still, critics point out that most benefits flow to higher-income brackets. The expanded deductions phase out well before many middle-class incomes. The tax breaks cost the Treasury hundreds of billions over 10 years. To offset that loss, the bill cuts several social safety net programs. Medicaid faces major changes. Starting December 2026, childless, non-disabled adults must log 80 hours of work or community engagement each month. Failure to meet that requirement risks disenrollment. Eligibility checks move from annual to every 6 months. Recipients must submit fresh proof of income and residency. The bill also allows co-payments of up to $35 for doctor visits. That breaks the promise of nominally free care for the poorest beneficiaries. Food assistance through SNAP is overhauled as well. States must provide larger matching contributions. Able-bodied adults without dependents face stricter work mandates. They risk losing benefits if they fail to meet new hourly requirements. Critics warn that these changes will echo failed 1990s policies. Those earlier experiments led to spikes in food insecurity and heavy administrative churn. The Congressional Budget Office projects that up to 8.6 million low-income Americans could lose Medicaid by 2030. Those estimates include effects from work requirements, more frequent redeterminations, and co-payments. Analysts warn of downstream effects. They predict higher rates of untreated chronic illness. They foresee increased hospitalizations and emergency room visits. Public health advocates argue that the changes will ultimately raise overall healthcare costs. The bill does more than alter taxes and safety nets. It rescinds many of the Biden-era green energy credits. Incentives for solar, wind, and electric vehicles are cut or eliminated. In their place, the measure allocates $25 billion for a new space-based missile defense system, dubbed the Golden Dome. The measure's price tag is steep. By authorizing $4 trillion in new borrowing, it swells the deficit by an estimated $3.8 trillion over 10 years. Credit rating agencies reacted quickly. Moody's downgraded the U.S. credit rating, citing rising debt burdens and fiscal erosion. Standard & Poor's and Fitch placed U.S. debt on negative watch. Bond markets responded with higher yields on the 10-year Treasury note. That spike indicates investor unease about long-term fiscal health. Economists warn that sustained high deficits may crowd out private investment. They argue that government borrowing could push up interest rates for businesses and consumers. A former Treasury official commented, "We're mortgaging our future to pay for today's tax cuts." Others fear the bill sets a precedent for endless deficit spending. Public reaction split sharply along party lines. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries called the bill a reckless giveaway for the wealthy that punishes the most vulnerable. He warned of families skipping prescriptions and seniors choosing between rent and food. Business groups praised its pro-growth tax agenda. Labor unions and public health organizations condemned the safety net cuts. Rallies for and against the measure filled the Capitol grounds. Supporters waved signs touting tax relief and economic freedom. Opponents held banners demanding health care and food security. A nonpartisan poll found registered voters nearly evenly divided, 45% in favor, 47% opposed. That split suggests the bill could become a central issue in the 2026 midterm elections. Attention now turns to the Senate. Republicans must clear a 60-vote threshold to overcome a filibuster. A fresh CBO score is expected in late May. That report will detail a looming $500 billion automatic cut to Medicare under a 2011 sequestration trigger. Senate leaders aim to avoid that outcome without reopening Medicare's benefit structure. Floor debate may extend into early June. Senators will propose amendments on social programs, energy credits, defense spending, and border security. If the Senate approves the bill, it would reach President Biden's desk by mid-June. Both parties are already preparing their messages. Republicans will frame it as a triumph of governance that keeps campaign promises. Democrats will argue it is a one-sided deal that benefits the rich and hurts the poor. Grassroots groups and PACs on both sides are mobilizing ad campaigns and voter outreach. The One Big Beautiful Bill represents a high-stakes gamble with America's fiscal future. It locks in permanent tax relief for higher earners and businesses. It expands benefits for families and seniors. But it also imposes strict new requirements on the poor and cuts back vital social programs. The measure swells the national debt to levels not seen in decades. It rescinds green energy incentives and reshapes policy on border security, defense, technology, and student loans. As the Senate prepares its reckoning, the nation waits to see whether it can balance the competing demands of growth, security, and social welfare. The outcome will ripple through elections, markets, and everyday lives for years to come.